If you're trying to learn how to tell one interval from another by listening, it's hard to get better without some help. Thankfully, there's a free online resource that can help, and I'm going to walk you through how to set it up and use it most effectively. My name is David Lane, and I like to help pianists and composers with techniques and strategies that will help them to build and improve their craft. Hopefully, I can help you too. Ear training is a valuable skill for every musician in every genre. And intervals might be among the most important things to learn well by ear. But like all ear training, there's just no good way to practice it on your own.
Fourth. Darn, it's a fifth.
There are a lot of good apps to help with ear training, but one that I share with all of my students, mainly because it's free online, is musictheory.net. And it's very inexpensive if you want to use it as an app for iPhone and iPad, and that app is called Tenuto. I've done two separate tutorials before on musictheory.net that I'll list in the description. One was for using this app or website to improve reading notes from a staff, and the other was 3 different ways that you can practice learning your key signatures. Now I want to show you how to use this app to improve your interval ear training. Before we begin, I want to just offer the disclaimer that for this video at least, I'm not talking about any tricks like tune tags, where, for example, hearing a fourth makes you think of Wagner's Bridal March, or anything else to help you figure out the interval. I just want to go over how you can organize your practice with this single tool. So let's take a look. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is to type in musictheory.net. And as it tells you on this home page, if you are on an iPad or iPhone, you can use the Tenuto app. And what that will do, if you open the Tenuto app, it will be exactly the same from this next step. So on this home page, you click on Exercises right here at the top. And if you open the Tenuto app for iPhone or iPad, this is pretty much what the screen will look like. Now, I forgot to mention in advance, but you either want to be wearing headphones or you want to have speakers where you can hear this exercise. That's of paramount importance when you're doing any kind of ear training. We're going to scroll down all the way to the 5th section here where it says ear training, and go to this 3rd one. It says interval ear training. Now, as soon as I click on it, it's going to be in its default mode, so we're going to change some things. So always want to go to this wrench here, customize this exercise, and let's just go through and let's set some things up. So let's take a look at the intervals. So first of all, this is giving you all of the common intervals. Now, if you've studied enough music theory, you know that, for example, a minor third could in some instances be an augmented second, but for the purposes of music theory and just hearing intervals out of context, these are the intervals we go with. Like, for example, tritone in written music theory could be an augmented fourth or a diminished fifth, and it does matter in context, but out of context you can't tell, so we just call that interval the tritone. If you scroll down, you'll see all these others if you really want to get into some things. So it's basically an octave plus what's above, so a minor ninth, major ninth, minor tenth, and so on. So scrolling back up to the top, you have to decide what you want to work on for now. If you're new to ear training, I would keep this as simple as possible. I would uncheck everything but your major second, major third, perfect fourth, and perfect fifth. And if you're really new, I would even undo the perfect fourth and perfect fifth. Really, you can't get much benefit in listening to just one interval, so you need to hear 2. You need to hear the contrast of 2 back and forth. But for the sake of this demo, I'm going to say major second, major third, perfect fourth, perfect fifth. All right, let's click this back arrow to go to these other options. Play mode. When you're ear training, you want to try all of these. In fact, when I say all of them, I mean you can literally hear all of them. So let's pick one for now. The one that I think is the easiest to get into, and that's this 4th option. Low note, high note separately, both together. And then after you've done that, I would come back and I would not uncheck it. I would add high note, low note, both together. And then I would check, probably the next one would be just both together. Actually, it doesn't really matter in what order you add these others. All right, let's just leave this 4th option checked, go back. Speed. You can play around with this, but slower is good for now. This just means that you'll hear the notes played quickly, and if you're new to ear training, faster is harder, so let's start slow for now. Instrument, now it's set to a modern piano, but you can play around with it. Try different sounding pianos, or acoustic guitar, or piccolo, or flute, saxophone. It's like woodwinds, brass. You could hear it in a synthesized version of your instrument, even on marimba or vibraphone. And I would actually recommend trying those. If you're really good on one instrument, try it on another, because sometimes intervals sound different when they're played with different sounds. So it's good to practice those different ways. So now we get to the range. This is saying, what's the lowest note you're going to get? What's the highest note you're going to get? Well, you can certainly start off here. The first adjustment that I think I would be inclined to make is let's go a little bit higher. Let's take that C5 and make it up to a G5. Eventually, I think I would go down as low as maybe a C2 and as high as a C6. But again, the sky's the limit. You can go from A0 to C8. That's the width of a full-size piano. Let's go back. Now, what is this range defining? Is it both notes or the starting note? So we'll keep it on both notes. That means that the highest note that we're going to hear is a G5 and the lowest note is going to be a C3. I don't think there's any need to change this question immediately, like when will you hear the next thing after a correct answer? But you could put a weight in there if it's going fast, but we'll just leave that alone for now. And we'll come back to challenge mode in just a moment, but let's just hear what we have so far. I guess one more thing, I'm going to move over from this wrench to these three dots. And let's reset the score. You can always hear the interval again by clicking on the speaker icon. If you get it right, it's green. And you can hear that again if you want. Okay, let's get one wrong. It's red. Oops. And now I would listen to it again. Let's say, okay, let's try another one. And let's say that you click this one and it's incorrect. And then maybe, let's get it wrong again. And you're like, oh yeah, that is a fourth. And by the way, if this score bothers you, at any point, just click reset score. You're just practicing at the moment. Okay, so let's just play around with some settings now. Let's go back and let's say that now you want to add a major sixth, add a major seventh, and for good measure, we'll just put an octave in. You can add these one at a time, two at a time. Might as well put the unison in there. So let's go back and let's try a little bit of that. All right, let's go back to the settings. And this might be a good time to change your focus. So now we'll keep the perfect fourth and fifth. Maybe we'll throw a tritone in there, and we could just work with those intervals, or we could, let's take the tritone out and let's have minor second, major second, minor third, major third, perfect fourth, and perfect fifth. And I'm going to go back to that. And this game just keeps going. So let's go back to the wrench, look at the settings. Again, here's some ways that you could play around with this. We could say, I want to do these same things, but I want to make it a little bit more challenging and not hear the notes separately and just hear them together. So now it's going to sound like this. Again, you can play around with how you're doing that. I'm going to go back to the way we had it. Again, we can try this with different instruments. Like, what would this sound like with a French horn? Kind of like a sine wave, more of a synth. It kind of resembles a French horn. All right, we're going to change that back to piano. Again, we can play around with the range, but let's do one more thing. Let's leave this the way it is, and let's do this challenge mode. Okay, so for challenge mode, you can say that I'm going to do anywhere from 1 minute to 30 minutes. You can do a question limit of 5 at a time, all the way to 100. So for the sake of this demo, I'm going to put this on 10. But I would probably recommend, if you're really working on this, to think about like 50 questions, 50 to 100, and probably at least 5 minutes at a time. But let's just put it on 10, and let's see what this challenge mode looks like. And you can do multiple attempts, but I'm going to go ahead and just say I'm just going to give myself one chance to answer these questions. So let's see how I do. And it gives you this menu, challenge mode. Tap below to start a challenge with your current exercise customizations. Your existing score will be reset. So I'm doing this on a private browser, but if you're doing this on one that accepts cookies, you can actually save your score, and this will also save your score in the app, and you can try to beat it. Okay, let's try this. Remember, if you have to hear it again, always click on that. And it shows me the score. It also shows me how long it took, even though I didn't have the timer visible. And you can do that again. So I'm going to click on this view report, and it shows me my settings, and you can print this. So you can click on that, and you could save it as a PDF, or you can send it to your printer. And again, at any point, you want to remember, if you're coming back to this, if these are your settings, make sure that you do, to turn the challenge off, you just simply have to take one of these settings that's on and just move it all the way to where it says off, and it's all done. If you found this helpful, I would appreciate it if you would please subscribe to this channel, hit the like on this video, and feel free to share it with someone else who might find this helpful. Again, my name is David Lane. Good luck with your practicing.